Hey, what's going on, everybody? Patrick Garcia here from Legendary Lifestyles, and today I wanted to talk about being a different kind of hero, particularly a scrappy kind that relates to life. So what does that mean? A little bit vague. Well, let's take a look at a couple examples of people who are necessarily heroes in their own right and sort of have things a little bit easy for them. So if you watch Mad Men, of course there's Don Draper, and he's kind of like James Bond of the print advertisement world, and like women just throw themselves at him. And he's got money, and you know, they're off pretty straight. And I guess that's what you call a debonair. Hugh Hefner is also a debonair. So of course these are people who worked hard for what they have, but they reach a state of complacency. Now, there's nothing particularly wrong with complacency. I think it's great. Of course, you want to work towards retirement and being comfortable in your life. With guys like James Bond and Don Draper, you know, of course James Bond goes on missions and stuff and he fights the bad guys, but they don't necessarily have to try hard at being cool. You know, they sort of have this thing where social interactions are easy for them, and people just naturally gravitate for them. They don't have to try hard to have an influence on other people. So it's hard to picture somebody like Hugh Hefner going around to bars and clubs trying to hit on women when he has the Playboy Mansion, he has the Playboy Enterprise and the franchise, and women just sort of want to be with him. Now, I'm just not talking about women. This is about people also having an influence on in society as a whole. You remember that Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world? You know, he had a sort of commercial where he was like, he went out and had an awkward feeling just to know what it feels like. So I guess that's their way of like humanizing him or something like that. But I want you to think about it this way. Let's say, for example, you're a king, right? And you have money, wealth, an abundance of food and women, right? Well, what happens if somebody comes inside your kingdom and tears that shit down? You know, somebody who's been complacent in a long number of years is not going to know how to rebuild that kingdom again, right? So, for example, when you look at guys like Hugh Hefner, Don Draper, and James Bond, and you compare those with guys like, I don't know, let's say Spider-Man, who has to juggle school, and like Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy with like fighting crime. And then you also have Han Solo from the Star Wars universe, who has to fly the Millennium Falcon, put up with I forgot the name, the Wookiee, Chewbacca, and you know, put up with his bullshit and fly through these like asteroid rocks and stuff like that. Well, I would say that those guys are more authentic. Not that James Bond's not authentic. I think he's awesome. You know, he goes out and saves the world like numerous of times from like evil henchmen and whatnot. But what I'm trying to say is that when you put yourself in a state of uncomfortable situations, when you go out there and still try to interact with people and still try to, you know, build your craft and your skills, even when you have everything that you could possibly want in life, it gets you more proactive in life, which I always like to preach in my videos, being proactive and not reactive. One of the things that I like to talk about is getting your elbows in the mud. And this relates to going out and doing sales, interacting with women, making more friends in business, all right? One of the managers that I really like to look up to are the ones that are out there with their employees. Of course, there's like the CEOs and the vice president who's got to be a dick and make sure everybody's doing their work. But the ones that I potentially click with are the ones that say, hey, you know what, this is a hard job, but I'm going to get down there and do it with you. So that's getting your elbows in the mud and being scrappy. So one last thing before I wrap up. I would like to share you a valuable lesson that I learned from one of my mentors, Owen Cook from Real Social Dynamics. And when he talks about getting your elbows in the mud and being authentic, he likes to use an example of a tree. Now, if you think about a tree that like towers over a lot of everybody and towers over a lot of things, you would think that that tree would not be easily knocked down. But the thing is that if that tree doesn't have a stable amount of roots and a strong foundation, then it's gonna get knocked down. You know, that's why they gotta bring, like, you know, when people are chopping down trees to build a shopping mall, that's why they gotta bring the big rigs and the big giant machines that people drive and chainsaw them. But if a whole bunch of people go out there with an axe, it's very hard to bring it down. But if that tree doesn't have enough roots and doesn't have a solid foundation, it can be easily pushed over. Rather than someone that does have roots and has a strong foundation, it's sort of more difficult to, you know, maneuver and stuff like that. So, you know, but that tree, you know, in order for it to have those strong roots and a strong foundation, it's got to go through tough weather, it's got to go through rainstorms, and, you know, just really rigorous environments like that. So that strong tree is literally in the mud. So I know that I said that last bit was going to be the last thing I was going to say, but I actually have one more piece of golden nugget to share from my mentor Owen Cook. And he recently released an article on, well, also a video blog on how money can contribute to the decrease of your swagger when used improperly. And I think that relates a lot to the topic that I was just talking about today, with guys like, you know, Hugh Hefner and like Don Draper and stuff like that. So the way that works is the more that you rely on money for social interactions. Let's say you go to a bar or a club and you get bottle service. You're not really good at dating, so you spend money on like prostitutes and stuff of that nature. And how that decreases your swagger is that your mind actually creates energy to exude charisma. Now, the more that you find other ways to get around that, the more that your mind will decrease in exuding that energy to create charisma. Now, at the time when I read that, I thought it was a really interesting concept because it doesn't just pertain to like dating and stuff like that. It also pertains to, you know, social interactions. Me and my friends go to the bars and the clubs, and we don't spend a dime on bottle service. And most of us don't even drink most of the time. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I gave it up, and I have a blast. People look at me like I'm weird and stuff. It's like, oh, why do you go to a bar or to a club and you don't drink? Are you just trying to be a creeper? I'm like, well, being a creeper is going out and enjoying other people's company and having fun and dancing my fucking ass off. Then yeah, I am a creeper. I'm like the biggest creeper of all time. So that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about and wanted to leave you guys with. The less that you have things handed to you, you know, the more that you are able to build that authenticity and to be scrappy and have that strong foundation when you go around and, you know, try to influence the world and share your gifts with other people. Okay? So with that said, this is Patrick Garcia, and for the last time, I mean, not forever, but for this video, alright, become legendary.